Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real, and I'm your host, Bob Gallagher. Joining me in the studio today, I have Frances Markel of the Markel Realty Group with Keller Williams in Westford. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob.
So you've actually been on the show a few times. This is your third or fourth time now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's my third. Could be my fourth. I can't remember.
You've been doing the show for a while, so it's great to have you back. So we asked you to join us on the show today so we could talk about what's going on in the market out in Westford. And you cover Westford, the surrounding areas, pretty much all of Middlesex County.
That's correct. Yeah.
Great.
Westford, all the surrounding towns.
So why don't we talk first about the lack of inventory. I know we've been talking about this for, it seems like, years. It's funny how quick it went from there's too many houses on the market, now's a good time to buy, to oh my God, where's the inventory?
Yeah, and I think the last couple times I was here, we were talking about it being a seller's market and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think you had asked me earlier, is it just a lack of inventory or are homes selling faster? And it's actually a true lack of inventory. So in Middlesex County, we're down roughly 7 to 8% of inventory from year over year from last year.
Wow.
Same for Westford. And also homes aren't staying on the market for very long.
So that kind of exacerbates it, right? I mean, if homes are only on the market for, 2, 3, 4 days,
yeah,
it makes it seem way worse.
Well, days is pretty good, but it could be hours too.
Really? Wow. Remember the days when it used to take 30, 60 days to get an offer on a property?
I do. I do.
And it's not like it was decades ago. It was like 5, 6 years ago. I can't believe how much things have changed.
Right. And people have to get in right away. And buyers are willing to take off of work. They didn't used to do that. If a home came on the market on Wednesday, I list things sometimes on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday or something like that. 5 minutes later, someone has a showing scheduled for about an hour later.
Wow. Just because they want to be the first in the door.
Well, they want to be the first in the door, and they want to see if they can get an offer in before anyone else puts an offer in.
Wow. So it's really selling that quick. Hours or days, basically, at this point. Wow.
Right.
So as far as price points, what's happening with the price points now? Are they still continuing to go up? Or
They are. So sales price in Middlesex is up 6% from year to year for single-family homes, 4% for condos. And in Westford, single-family homes are up 25% in terms of close price, but a lot of that has to do with new construction. So that's skewed towards the high end.
Oh, okay. All right. So most of what's selling just happens to have been the higher end stuff.
Right. Or, that's all the data in it. So, but typically you're going to see a pretty big increase in the price of homes. And it's hard for realtors then to price something because you're pricing something and you think you're pricing it even kind of high, and maybe you put a little fudge in there and it could still go way over asking.
Wow. And did you see that happening typically these days? Is it selling at or above asking, mostly over asking, or are there still some deals to be had out there?
Very few deals to be had.
Yeah.
A lot selling at asking or certainly above. And the other thing that we're seeing now that we hadn't seen before, guess what? They're removing all contingencies. They're coming in with, no home sale, no mortgage. We're seeing cash. You probably don't like to hear that. But
Yeah, it's not as good for us, but we get it. What about home inspection contingencies? Are people waiving those now as well?
They are.
Yeah. Now, can they still do an inspection?
Well, it's different because I had one where it was a hot property. We put it on the market on, I had a couple this year, on a Wednesday or something like that, and they said that they would go to P&S on Friday. So absolutely no home inspection. When people say that they waive the home inspection and still do one, there's still a chance that they could get out. So you have to be careful as a listing agent how you advise your client about that.
Oh, because they just lose their $500 or $1,000 deposit, right?
And they don't care,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. Or they could be unreasonable and they say they're not going to come back with anything, and they might. And a lot of times it depends on the agent that you're dealing with too. And the ones where they say they're going to just do it for informational purposes, they mean it. And then there's other ones where they say it and it's like they don't mean it.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to tell sometimes, I'd imagine, right?
Right.
Wow. So changed in so many ways. So not just tighter inventory, higher prices, but now people throw in, waiving all sorts of contingencies just to try and make their offer more palatable to the sellers. Wow.
And I had another one where they put the offer in on Sunday and said cash close on Friday, and I said, whoa. Let's make sure. I said, if you can contact your attorney on Sunday night, and which they did, could he close it on Friday? He said, no, I need 10 days, so we closed it the following Wednesday. But you have to look at all of that, and so it's a tough market out there for buyers.
Wow. How did your seller get out of the house so fast?
It was an investment property for my seller. They made a lot of money and they got out and very happy.
Wow. I would imagine.
Yeah.
That's something else we kind of talked about a little bit before we got started today was investing in real estate. Do you feel like real estate investors are exacerbating the problem with the lack of inventory?
No, not really, because they are in there, but they're looking at a different type of home. So the families want to move into a home where they're going to raise their kids and go to the schools and have a yard. The investors are looking for something that they're going to rent out. And so typically it could be a multifamily, it could be a condo or something like that. And not as many investors on a single family home, but the ones there would be the ones that you want to flip.
Right.
So they want to turn it around and flip it and sell it for a lot of money.
So I guess it's more if you get into the cities where people would normally buy a multi because they wouldn't need the income to qualify from the other units. But yeah, in the suburbs, I guess it doesn't happen as often. But
the multis that you're seeing them buying in the city, that they're going to condominialize those, and so they're going to sell them as separate units. And make a lot of money that way too.
Yeah, it seems like everybody's doing that now.
Everyone's doing that.
What about tear downs? You hear about Needham. Well, first it was Newton. Now it's pretty much the norm in Needham. Yeah. I'm hearing they're doing it in Natick now. Yeah. You seeing the same thing out your way, or there's still enough land where they don't have to do that yet?
No, there are tear downs, and people are looking for them. Sometimes there's restrictions on it, so they may tear down the home, and then they'll build a home on the exact same foundation. I had a couple of those recently, and that's a little bit difficult because if it's a smaller home, how do you tear everything down and then do it? Because otherwise you have to go through a lot more approval processes if you want to make it much bigger.
Right.
Depending on the lot size.
So typically, you seeing people tear down colonials yet, or is it more like the old school ranches they're knocking down?
The ranches.
Yeah.
Or tearing it down and building it straight up. And it's funny, some builders will think, okay, maybe I'll just add a second floor to it. And then they find out it's much easier for them to tear it down than trying to figure out where we're going to put those steps and move everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, because, even if you do add a second floor, because we've done those renovation loans a few times, and you're basically gutting the first floor anyway, so what are you really saving by trying to work within the same footprint? Right. Now, are they actually bulldozing foundations and really starting from scratch, or do they have to use the same footprint?
Well, it depends. There's more paperwork involved if you have any special requirements in terms of, wetlands. That's a big thing over here, and where you can put a house, and in Westford everything is on septic and different things like that. So you have those issues. If they can bulldoze it down, they'll use the foundation if they can. Just make it easier. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. So what about big subdivision? There's not massive tracts of land in Westford anymore, is there? It's not like you can have those 100-unit complexes being built, right? Well,
the thing is, the town is very protective of their open space, and so they don't want to see it go to subdivisions. So town next door to us, Littleton, they have a lot of open space, a lot of farms and stuff like that. And some of that will be going over into subdivisions where they'll put up 26 homes or 30 or something like that. I don't see the 100+ homes over here. And it's funny because I have friends in California and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a realtor, but they, doing a subdivision, it's 1,000 homes. I'm like, oh my God, that's like bigger than the towns that we're living in over here. Don't you understand that?
1,000 homes.
1,000, right.
I can't even imagine. I can't fathom building 1,000 homes in one area.
Can you imagine being the listing agent for 1,000 homes?
I'd like to imagine that.
Yeah, I should move out there.
Yeah, well, my wife lived in San Diego for years, and those are those things where you literally go in and it's like a town of all the same house, and they're all 3 feet apart, right? I imagine that's the only way you can fit in 1,000 properties.
Yeah, but you know what? They're also doing bigger homes, and so they're not all the small ones. It's not like Levittown in New York or Pennsylvania, and stuff like that.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, it'd be nice if they could do that out here, but we just don't have the space for it.
Yeah, and again, the ones where we do have the space, because we're a country, it's going to be protected by the people that already live there, because they don't want to see the building, because of they like their space, they like their little privacy, they like their large lots now, and also it can be a strain on school systems.
Yeah, it seems like every community is having a strain on the school system, even with the building they are allowing. But I don't see it getting any better before it gets worse. There's just so many people that want to buy houses and so little to buy.
Right.
Why don't we talk a little bit about how you prep sellers for the market they're in? Even though it is a seller's market, there's still got to be a lot of prep work that's involved.
There is, and I think that you need to really put your best foot forward because you only have the one chance to make a first impression. And so in my group, we hire a professional stager to go in there and tell them what needs to be done. We could help them, if they need contractors and stuff like that and painting and stuff like that. So the homes are staged. They look fantastic. Not always what they look like when we first came in, and professional photography, and that really helps. And it's worth it. Even though you're in a seller's market, you want to be the one that's going to be selling for a lot more and faster.
Right.
And who knows what's going to happen with the market.
Right. Right. So it's not just because it's a seller's market doesn't mean you just throw a sign out in the front yard and the house is sold, right? It's still all about the presentation.
It still is.
Yeah. What about managing sellers' expectations? 5-6 years ago, sellers' expectations were that, they were going to be lucky to get a couple offers and they were going to be lucky to get somewhere. Yeah. They'd be lucky to get an offer and they'd be lucky to get anywhere near their asking price, within 5%, say. You know
what? I remember those days because I've been around for a while, and I remember having to call them and say, congratulations, you got an offer. I'm going to come over to discuss it because, it's not a great offer. And so you do that in person. It's like, okay. Yeah. But, there's 150 homes on the market right now, and they chose yours.
Yeah, seriously. And now it's completely the opposite. You got 10 people for every house on the market.
Yeah.
So how do you prep them? I mean, what's the difference between now and back then? Back then I imagine it was a little tougher because the expectations were lower. But now with people having such high expectations, do you find that that's starting to cause problems?
A little bit because you have sellers that think that because it is such a seller's market that they could demand whatever. And for the most part, people are very reasonable and fair. And I think that's the key is that you have to be fair in this market. So if you say that you're going to review all offers on Tuesday at noon and they have to be in by Monday night, then you do that. So everyone is on the same playing field. And then the seller gets to choose. I love going in there with an Excel spreadsheet that shows them, 8 offers, and here are the contingencies and stuff like that. I'm a numbers person, so that helps. And then they get to choose. People are writing letters and pictures of their family in front of the home and different things like that.
Wow.
So, and they get to choose. I could advise them at what I think is best, or explain all the contingencies to them.
And when it comes down to that, when you're kind of helping them through that process, what is it that usually leads them to choose, a particular offer? Is it always the highest price, or is
it's
it
all different?
Really?
And you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So for me, I don't care about the letters, but sometimes they work and it may pull on their heartstrings or something like that. And then some people, because, I remember, even maybe about 4 years ago or something, having a cash offer. And, it fell apart and put it on the market and had one. It was 80% financing, had multiple offers, 80% financing, and it fell apart, and then put it back on the market. Each time we had over asking, and someone doing FHA. They love the home. Didn't ask for a thing after the home inspection. So you don't know. But for them, they have a good feeling of who they, what they want. But it's surprisingly different. It's not always. There's 3 pieces to the puzzle. It's the price, the terms. Are they going to do an inspection? Do they care about the appraisal, and how much are they putting down? And then it's the closing date. So what is the most important factor for the seller? Sometimes it is the price. And then sometimes it's the closing date. So who can be the most flexible with it? And then the other one depends then if they have no contingencies. And I can give you an example. I had someone where we had 3 offers. We had cash, we had 50% down, and we had one that was FHA, only putting 3.5% down. And the difference in those offers was $2,500. And they went with the one that was FHA that was $2,500 higher because to them, that was the most important thing.
Right.
You and I might have said, well, you know what? I'll take cash any day of the week.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. So I don't make that decision. I let them make it, and they have all the facts.
And so it sounds like it doesn't even have to be that big of a difference. I mean, in that case, $2,500 got them the house.
Yeah, that was on a condo, and they were using that to buy a house in Westford, and they were happy. And I was just like, biting my things. So now I have to make sure this appraises, which I thought was high to begin with. You know how it goes.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the seller.
Excellent. Before we get too much further, I want to make sure I give out your contact info. So we're talking with Frances Markel of the Markel Realty Group with Keller Williams in Westford. She covers all of Middlesex County, Westford, surrounding towns. Best way to get a hold of her is cell phone 978-621-9785. Again, it's 978-621-9785. Why don't we shift gears from sellers and talk a little bit about how you prep buyers, because that's a little different than it was years ago, too.
Absolutely right. And their expectations, it's pretty frustrating for a lot of buyers out there. The best thing I could tell them is to get a buyer agent that's working on your behalf, because they can get you in a home right away. You don't have to call the listing agent and just wait on Sundays and Saturdays. I get a lot of calls from people that don't have agents thinking that they can get in, that they're going to get a better deal because they don't have an agent. Definitely get an agent, because it makes a difference when you write that offer and they see you're with an agent. And also, a lot of agents I know on my team are doing escalation clauses. And this is something that we didn't see a while ago, where they'll say, I'll pay $1,000 or $2,000 higher than the highest offer up until a certain point. So,
and does that work?
You know what? When you present it, you have to make sure that the seller is okay with that. And you talk to the listing agent and say, how does your seller feel about escalation clauses? And some agents would say they love it, or the other people, some will say they don't want to hear anything about it. They just want your highest. So it's a tough market. And what we're seeing is sometimes buyers have to lose a few, because they're not as afraid of overpaying as they used to be. You know, they're like, oh, I don't want to overpay. But now if they get it, they don't have any buyer's remorse that they paid too much. They're thanking their lucky stars, because chances are that there's another offer that was very close, right in the wings, waiting for that to fall apart.
That's very interesting that you point that out, because I do remember that was the concern for a lot of people for a long time.
I overpaid. Yeah.
After you go out and make offers on multiple properties and keep losing, I think it changes pretty quickly, where you're much more concerned about getting a house than maybe overpaying.
Right. I mean, yeah, because it's a home.
Right.
It's not just a house.
Yeah, it's not just an investment.
It's not an investment for people. Right.
Excellent. Well, it's been great having you back on the show. We're just about out of time. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you back again soon. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after this.